Well, let's take a look at our weather here today, shall we? -1, a mix of sun and cloud out there, on our way to a high of +1 on February 8th. It's coming off a week that was beautiful after a January that was pretty mild here, where we got our Rideau Canal open for just a couple of days. I got out there briefly on the second day and experienced some of the worst conditions I have ever experienced on an ice surface. Is it just a one-off? I mean, the Rideau Canal did not open at all last winter. It's a question we've been asking about here, but asking it in the context of knowing that it's been a different year all over the globe and that we are seeing something that appears to be somewhat of a trend. And world temperatures above a particular warming limit that we want to keep in mind. And European Union scientists are sounding the alarm on this as the world just experienced its hottest January on record. What does it all mean? Dr. Anabela Bonada is on the line, Director of Climate Adaptation Science at the University of Waterloo's Intact Center on Climate Adaptation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Patricia.
So we've had different stats, different numbers that keep jumping up. A lot of us anecdotally have thought, well, this is not what we expect January to be in Canada, certainly not what we expect it to be here in Ottawa, but it is not just here. We're seeing this all over.
Yeah, and especially across Canada. So we had, that cold snap that we're more used to earlier in January, but then it's all gone back to being warmer than normal and having much less snow than we're used to, but also extreme snow events like we just saw in Nova Scotia, just impacting people and their homes and work and schools. So it's just so variable across the country. But across the board, the temperature has been warmer than is usual for us here in Canada and drier than is usual for us.
What does that mean for you? What do you take away from that?
It's something that, we knew could happen, especially in an El Nino year, but the temperatures have surpassed anything that was projected for this time. And we've reached that 1.5 degree increase globally for this year. And that was something that was projected to happen about 10 years from now. So it's occurring earlier than we thought. Of course, that number, for it to be very significant, has to be sustained for a longer period of time. So this is just this year. But it's concerning because while 2023 or the past 12 months are the hottest on record now, 2021 was one of the hottest years on record, and it was actually a La Nina year, which means it's a little bit cooler, and it was still hot, it's still, the temperature still went over the threshold. So it's concerning because we're just headed in that direction no matter what at this point.
And so you would expect the rest of 2024 to continue in that direction likely, or?
It's very likely. So it looks like El Nino has peaked, which means we should see temperatures go a little bit more back to normal over the next few months. But it's hard to tell because of that impact of climate change that we have all the time occurring. We've already warmed our planet. So it'll be a slow decrease, and there is a 46% chance that by the middle of the year we'll switch to a La Nina year. So again, a bit of like a cooling period. But as I just mentioned, in 2021 it was La Nina, and it was still quite a hot year. So it remains to be seen. And what we do know right now, so without even projecting further, is that if you look at drought across Canada, we're experiencing anywhere from abnormally dry to exceptionally dry in different areas of Canada, and particularly in areas where wildfires occur or where agriculture can be highly impacted. So we're seeing the impacts like right now in the first few days of February.
Are we waking up to this, do you think? What does it take to get a wake-up call? Are we doing enough to mitigate? And I'm giving you about a minute to tackle this.
We're not doing enough to mitigate. We really need to reduce our emissions, and that's like everybody. It means from you, your neighbor, governments, businesses. We all need to decrease our emissions as much as possible. In the meantime, while we're being highly impacted by these events, think about adaptation because we're already feeling the impact. So do things around your home, around your community that can really increase your resilience to these impacts. And there is a lot of information available. Just if you have the time, it's at intactcenter.ca. You can really find some advice on how to make your home and your life more resilient to these big changes.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. As always, when we have this discussion, I'm having people say, you got to hear it from the other side. We want to hear more on this. Not everyone convinced about what is happening out there. We will explore with some of the people that they're suggesting, but it's the research, it's the numbers. I don't know how we look away from that at this point. Dr. Bonada, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Patricia.